You know, it's always fun to come to you guys and talk about a new favorite series. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and as always guys, I am Andrew, and today we're going to be talking a little bit of Threadlight, but before we get into that, make sure you are liking and subscribing, hitting that bell notification so you can get regular updates for when I put out new content. Also, make sure you're checking that description box down below for the link to the Wizardly Duo Discord, links to all my social media, and information about my Patreon, where I do my weekly update, I do Patreon giveaways, early access to my videos, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now that said, guys, let's talk about Zack Argyle's Threadlight. And this is kind of a why I love and why I think you should read it. Now, I've talked about Threadlight a lot here on the channel, but specifically, right now I want to talk about it because Bonds of Chaos is getting ready to come out. I have been privileged enough to get an e-arc of that, and I might be getting a physical arc as well. But I've already read it, and so now I've got this completed series sitting here in my mind, and I absolutely love it. So let's talk about my history with Threadlight here. Basically, what ended up happening is I, was of course very new to BookTube. I was scrolling people's channels, and I saw this beautiful cover. Back then, this was the only book out. He's actually put this series out fairly quickly for all 3 books. And basically, I saw Chris on the cover, and I was like, oh, color me excited. And so I went ahead and I bought the ebook. And then I sat on it for like 3 months. And basically, what ended up happening is I got stuck at a car dealership when I was buying my latest car. And I was stuck there for hours. And so I happened to have my iPhone on me at the time. I opened up the Kindle app. There was The Voice of War, and I just started reading it. And it's very hard to read an ebook on a phone, but, of course, I was able to transition to my e-reader. But by the time I got home, I read the rest of it in, I think, 2 sittings. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved the magic system. I loved the characters. I loved the pacing. I loved the action. Now, while book 1 was a bit rough, when we got to book 2, it leveled up. Basically, Voice of War was, I believe, an SPFBO 6 finalist. And Zack is the husband to booktuber Bookborn, who is now an SPFBO judge. She leads Team Bookborn. So this family comes from a very fantasy, just a very high fantasy pedigree. So Zack knows what he's doing. He's got that input at home from a book reviewer. And guys, when I first, started reading Threadlight, I kind of attributed it to a lot about, Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. They were kind of similar in theme and, similar magic systems. And I will say this. I think, this is my own personal opinion, I think Mistborn Era 1 starts out stronger than Threadlight. I think Threadlight ends stronger than Mistborn Era 1. Overall, the arc of Threadlight is more satisfying to me than Brandon Sanderson's Era 1 Mistborn. I think it's more consistent. I think we've got better character growth. I think we've got more dynamic magic systems, and overall, I just love everything to do with it. Let's talk some of the characterizations here, because we've got Chris, we've got Laurel. I believe that's Laurel. No, that's not Laurel. That is Chris's wife and his son. This is Laurel, this is Asher, and then we've got the whole gang on Bonds of Chaos. And guys, the way that Chris works is he was, this war hero who was known for being ruthless, but at the same time, he seems to have this dual-sided personality. He is referred to as the apogee. And he kind of has this voice in his head that sometimes feels like he's about to lose control. And he really struggles with this because he doesn't know if he's crazy, he doesn't know if this is real. And one of the things that I love about book 1 is the dynamic that Chris has with his wife. Now, Chris, of course, is a Threadweaver, and I can't remember if he's a Sapphire or an Emerald. Basically, there are 4 types of Threadlight. There's Emerald, Obsidian, and Sapphire and Emerald being the most common. And here's where the similarity kind of comes to Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, because basically they can push and pull, which Allomancy has similar elements. But what's cool is when a Threadlight user is using their magic, it kind of shows up in their veins. Their eyes light up the color of their magic. I believe that Chris is a Sapphire user. I think that sounds correct. especially because on the cover his eyes are blue instead of green. So we're going to go with Chris is a sapphire user, and I believe his wife is an emerald user. And I think her name's Ariel. Ariel? I have a hard time pronouncing it. She's an absolutely fantastic character, and one of the things that kind of sold me on this series was the character dynamics, because Chris and his wife have a very, very loving and very healthy relationship, and we will see this throughout the entirety of the series, where his wife is very understanding of Chris's demons. She doesn't criticize him, she does reinforce, and then he does his best for her. But if he treats her poorly, she is not afraid to say, hey, I am not this porcelain doll. I am my own person. I can take care of myself. I am useful. I am not just your baby-carrying woman. I am your wife. I am your partner. And I love that dynamic, because when she calls out Chris, Chris has to take a step back and reevaluate his actions. And I love seeing that in any sort of literature, especially fantasy. And then we've got Laurel and Asher. Laurel is kind of in this hidden city up in the trees. She is a courier / spy, and basically she, I believe, is an emerald user, and I probably got that wrong. Honestly, the type of magic that people use doesn't play as much into the story as you would think, other than when it comes to the ambers and the obsidians. Those, they can kind of make stuff happen, but overall, like, the action kind of happens so fast-paced that when it comes to the magic system, which is a more hard magic system than soft, it doesn't really factor in that much except in the first book. But basically, Laurel has lost her parents. She has her grandfather. She has her brother who is sickly. And basically, she gets caught out in Chris's city and gets in trouble with the ruling council of her city and loses her career privileges, and then we have to kind of go and deal with the consequences of that. She is younger, she is impetuous, she is impulsive, and what I love is basically she's very entitled in the first book, and then we kind of see her brought a little lower in the second book, just due to circumstances that happen throughout the series, and then we kind of got to see her rise again in the third book, and I absolutely love that. We've got right here, we've got Asher, which is her chroma wolf. I have been begging Zack Argyle to kind of get me a chroma wolf. Even though they don't exist, I absolutely love this fantasy creature. Look at him. He is gorgeous. I think at one point, Zack Argyle like photoshopped my face like right here, and he said, "That's the best I can do for you." And that was hilarious. That was on Twitter. That was a while ago. But I love that. And then our next main character would be Willow, which is Chris's mother. And Willow is kind of this older Threadweaver. She is atypical of Threadweavers, where she kind of does not give into her power. She is known to be a powerful Threadweaver, but the more you use your magic, the faster it ages you, and you die younger. She's just had the birth of her grandson, and she doesn't really want to, she wants to be there for her son. She wants to protect him. She wants to protect her family. And Willow is just this awesome, awesome character who we really get to see shine throughout the series. Now, my favorite character is probably Alvarix. And one of the things I will mention in Voice of War is we get a kind of an odd prologue. And then we meet Alvarix about halfway through the book. He becomes a main POV, kind of out of nowhere. So structurally, Voice of War is a bit rougher than, say, Stones of Light or Bonds of Chaos. But as each subsequent book in the series has been released, the quality has seen a massive jump. Anyway, with Alvarix, he is an obsidian Threadweaver. He can take the threads, he can break them, which allows people to levitate and just kind of float in the air. Ambers, of course, creates threads, and then the amber and the sapphire push and pull. Or the emerald and the sapphire push and pull. I think I said amber on accident. Anyway, he is an obsidian Threadweaver. However, he was not born this way, and so he goes to figure out kind of what's happening here. Now, one of the things about Alvarix is he has got terrible luck in the first two books. No matter what he tries to do, it is going to go poorly for him. That's fine, because we get to see him really struggle and grow through adversity. One of the things that I love is by the third book, even though everybody in this story is separated, by the second book they've come together, and by the third book we have formed this fantastic found family. I absolutely love the dynamic that all of our POVs have created, where they all rely on each other and they have been fighting through this adversity. Now, the main issue here is that basically there are these old gods of old, the heralds of the wastelands, and they have returned after a long exile. And essentially, basically, legends and myths and stuff like that, and they've built religions on these people. Come to find out, they're not quite as benevolent as one may have thought. And so basically, all of our characters are kind of rising against to fight these heralds. And it's just absolutely awesome. There's a whole bunch of ways, like the way that they've made themselves immortal and acquired powers is very predatory. It's just very sinister, and watching them try and figure out how to defeat these people who have hundreds of years of experience on them is just fascinating. Now, some of the tropes and some of the world building and character building that I really love here, just to kind of pick a few, is, again, I've already mentioned the relationship dynamics, but I really like the growth dynamic. And I've kind of touched on this in this video of all of our characters. We really get to see Ariel, Chris, Laurel, Alvarex, and Willow grow as this found family unit together, because they are each dynamic characters. They are each identifiable, separate from the group. And that makes this for a very rewarding reading experience. And by the time we get to Bonds of Chaos, we have such high stakes. We are invested in these characters. We care about their relationships. We care about the stakes of the story, that it can just be hard hitting to see them either fall flat-footed, or to, it can be rewarding to see them succeed. It's just so great. One of the things I love about this series is the pacing. And basically, on my Goodreads review, I open my review with saying this is a fast-paced masterpiece of modern fantasy. And I stand by that, because this series is just pedal to the metal. It goes. And Zack Argyle is one of those writers who wants stuff to happen within his story. He wants the reader to be engaged, to be waiting for the next big thing. That is important to him as a writer, because that's the kind of reader he is. And so he likes to be entertained. He likes to have things happening in the story. He likes to see the story moving forward at a good clip. And let me tell you what, each entry in this series does that. I cannot recommend this enough, because obviously I have a lot of love for the series. From an audiobook standpoint, I love the narrator. Guys, that narrator's name is Adam Gold, and every time I say that, I want to just flash back to, like, Austin Powers Goldmember, where he's just like, I love gold! The man has a fantastic narrating voice. He is just smooth as just warm, melty, golden chocolate. Like, that man's voice. Basically, Adam Gold normally narrates romance, but he just fits in perfectly here into this fantasy world, and it works 100%. He has narrated both Voice of War and Stones of Light, and each performance is absolutely astounding. I highly recommend not only the physical copies, the ebooks, but also the audio narration. I have to say that Threadlight has become a new favorite series of mine, and when the third book comes out in the hardcover, you can bet that I will be picking it up for my collection, because this is a series that I will be revisiting time and again throughout the rest of my life. Zack Argyle has knocked it out of the park, and I will say this, he has stuck the landing in Bonds of Chaos. Now, does that mean that this series is flawless? Absolutely not. Like I said, the first book does have a bit of a pacing issue, and a little bit of a structural thing where we introduce Alvarex very late in the story. Book 2 is basically flawless in my opinion, from what I remember. I don't remember having a whole lot of complaints there. And then book 3 is just frenetic pacing. It goes, goes, and goes. And a lot of the times, if something emotional happens, you're not really given the time to sit there with that event. It's just going, 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 and it's not going to apologize for that, which is 100% a-okay with me. I just get this rewarding ending to the story. And I do. There's great callbacks at the end of Bond of Chaos that cycles all the way back to Voice of War, which means it's got a nice circular structure where it's got this nice through line. I love a story that does good callbacks. Obviously, this is a gush review. I cannot recommend Threadlight enough. Please, guys, do yourself a favor. If you have not picked this one up yet, now is the perfect time because Bonds of Chaos is coming out within a month. Please do yourself a favor and get caught up on this series as it is now complete. That said, guys, that is all I have got here for you. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on Threadlight. And as always, guys, till next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons.